Howdy, y'all. Caleb here. Well, it's starting. We've got our first look at the Seraphon rules for the 4th edition, and it's pretty exciting. This is the best time of Warhammer here is when we get new rules for things, and finally it's Seraphon's turn as they're doing their faction focuses, and we get to see what Seraphon's going to look like in the next edition. So we're going to go over some of the good, some of the bad, some of the not quite sure yet because it's still kind of up in the air until we see the entire index. But this does give us a peek at how we're going to be doing some list building, some planning, and some of the units that we're going to be taking in the new Seraphon. So let's jump right in. Battle traits here. Battle traits are the exciting part because this kind of defines how your army is differentiated from other armies. What makes it unique? What are its abilities? What are we going to be looking at doing with this army that's different from everybody else's? So battle traits are pretty cool, and I think Seraphon's, it may not be quite as good as it was previously, but I think it has some good play here and some tactical flexibility in how we can utilize these new battle tactics. So let's take a look at them. Once per battle in the deployment phase, we get a great plan. So the great plan, the Seraphon look for the heavens for guidance, scrying the scars above in the hope that the great plan is revealed to them. Pick an asterism ability. That asterism ability can be used for the rest of the battle, but the others cannot unless allowed to by further the great plan ability. So we have asterisms here. Now you may remember that if you've been playing Seraphon a long time, we used to have some asterisms a long time ago where you just pick a buff at the beginning of the game. And that's kind of what this is. So that's pretty exciting. I always liked that in the, what was that, like 2 battle tomes ago? So we're kind of getting a taste of that back in this one. So let's go through them real quick, and then we'll come back to further the great plan. So the first one here, Itzel the Tamer. This one, it seems like it's kind of aimed at your monsters, like your Thunder Lizard type of thing. Maybe Agrodons, Raptidons, any of the flyers. The things that have monsters here or mounts is kind of what this is aimed at. So the effect is companion weapons used by friendly Seraphon units have the critical hits for 2 hits. So anytime you're rolling the companion weapons, so that would be like your Carnosaur, Jaws, and Claws, on a 6, it'll explode into another hit. Very good for, what is generally high damage attacks from those companion weapons. If we look at the Carnosaur here coming up in a bit, it'll help out the Carnosaur's damage. If we imagine the Agrodon's Warscroll is pretty similar to what it is now, then the mounts will get this critical hit, and that's good because it's all multi-damage. So this one here is you're looking for just as much possible damage as you can get out of your big units. Take this one. It's great that these things last all game, and there's no stop to them. There's no way to prevent it. And you kind of get an option to pick this at the table. Because it's at the deployment phase, you can kind of look at what your opponent's doing, what your army is list builded, look at the battle plan, and you can pick one of these that's going to help you accomplish the win in that game. So I like this first one. Gives good damage to all the monsters. Second one, Quetzal the Preserver. Subtract 1 from the Ren characteristics of melee weapons for attacks that target friendly Seraphon units that are wholly within friendly territory. To me, this one's kind of probably the replacement for what was Scaly Skin. It's not nearly as good, but at least it does affect everything that's all the melee attacks. So it's probably not as good in the long run, but I think it has some play. Especially since it's wholly within your friendly territory. This seems like an easy one to pick at the beginning of the game if you know that somebody is going to be alpha striking you, or you've got like a slower castle play. Maybe you're pushing warriors up the board or Kroxigor, and they're going to be in your territory for 2 turns. Then this is a good passive ability to make your stuff survive a little bit longer. So -1 to rend is very good, especially since it seems like they've kind of brought some of the rend down on some units in the new edition. And so this will help us out stay alive a little bit longer. It also combos well with a spell we'll talk about here in a minute. The next one, Sotek the Deliverer. Add 2 to the move characteristics of friendly Seraphon units. I like this one if you're planning on alpha striking something. So if you're looking at your Agrodons and you're looking to move them all the way across the board turn 1, kind of like what we do now. I don't know if Vengeful Defender's still going to survive into this next edition. It might. But +2 to move helps get the things going where you need to go. And it's all game. So now, assuming Stegodons are the same, now they're moving 10 instead of 8. Kroxigor would be moving 7 instead of 5. Warriors are a little bit faster. So +2 to move is a nice thing to have for all your units. But if you're looking to plan in this, probably your Alpha Strike is what you're going to be looking at using this passive ability for. And the last one, Topek the Seer. Tepok the Seer, maybe something like that. I don't know. Add 1 to casting rolls for friendly Seraphon units. So this is definitely aimed at your Slann, your Lord Croak, your Skink Wizards, what we would know as Starborn right now. If you're building that castle of casters and you're wanting to do damage, assuming that survives into the 4th edition, then this is definitely the one that you'd want to take, because that allows you to just have an easy +1 to casting for all of your wizards. It might not be as important if if there's still ways to get us like +2, +3 to casting even without this. Maybe you lean into something else. Maybe if you're looking at building that castle of casters and you already have enough pluses, maybe you want that -1 Ren to make sure people can't just run through all your screens on turn 1 and get into your casters. So there's some play there. The good thing is we do have this Further the Great Plan ability, which allows us to get access to another battle trait, another asterism here. So you declare this ability if you meet the condition below that corresponds to the asterism you picked in the deployment phase. So there's a little bit of planning here that needs to go into this. So as we look at this, you'll want to look and which one am I planning on picking? Can I accomplish basically the side quest here to get the next asterism? So if you picked, Itzel the Tamer, the companions have critical hits of 2, you would look down here and here's your side quest you've got to accomplish. 3 or more enemy units have been destroyed at the start of the 3rd battle round. So these kind of correspond together, because it seems like you'd be a pretty aggressive list if you're leaning into those companion crits. Now, it doesn't say necessarily, they have to be killed any specific way. So if Stegodons are still shooting units and you can still shoot things off the board, then this would be an easy way to accomplish this. If you're sending your Carnosaurs forward, your Agrodons forward with this ability, you'll probably have killed 3 units, depending on the army, and that'll allow you to get this side quest accomplished. Once you do that, you can now get to look at the effect down here. You now get to pick a different asterism ability. It can be used in addition to the one that you picked in the deployment phase. So once you accomplish that side quest, now you can look down through the other ones. What do I want to add to my army's abilities so that I can further buff my units? Let's imagine you have a Thunder Lizard list and you've taken the companion weapons to do crits. You've accomplished your side mission. Maybe you want the extra move. Maybe you've sat back and shot and killed all the stuff that you needed to do. You've killed those 3 units. Now you need the extra move to get in. Or if you're playing, mostly on your side of the board, you lean into the -1 Ren. That will help keep your monsters alive longer. So some interesting play there, depending on how you're building your army and what you're facing. Some of the other one, Quetzal the Preserver, this is the -1 Ren, so you're kind of in your territory. You're kind of holding down your side of the board. Your side quest is make sure there's no enemy units wholly within friendly territory. This one probably will be a little bit easier to stop. The thing is, your opponent's going to know what they have to do. I mean, assuming they know what your index says and all that kind of stuff. But they'll see what your side quest is going to be, and they'll just try to get one enemy unit holding your territory so you don't get another passive. So, to me, that one, while it seemed to me like Quetzal the Preserver is probably the strongest one to pick to start off the game with if you don't have another specific strategy, it does end up with a somewhat of a difficult side quest here to accomplish. At least it should be fairly easy for the opponent to stop this one. The next one, Sotek the Deliverer. If you took the extra 2 inches of movement for your friendly Seraphon units, you would end up with a side quest of the enemy general is in combat or has been destroyed. Very interesting there. It does kind of lean into like a very aggressive list. So if you are alpha striking, maybe you can tie up their general by the start of turn 3. You don't necessarily have to kill him. You just got to get him into combat. And so if you can do that, then you'll achieve that and get the extra asterism. Not the easiest one. And sometimes you probably don't want to get the enemy general in combat if you can't kill it right away. So we'll see how that one works out. For Tepak the Seer, this one I think is pretty easy to do, it seems like. So this is the ability where you get +1 to casting rolls for friendly Seraphon. Your side quest is if there are any friendly Slann units on the battlefield and no friendly Slann units are in combat or have been destroyed. So keep your Slann alive and not in combat. That seems like a fairly easy one as long as we're doing like some kind of spell casting list where you're going to be pushing out your screens and casting with your Slann. So it seems like that one will be pretty easy to accomplish. So you could lean into Tepak the Seer if you've got a spell casting army, and then maybe pick one of the other ones that leans into what other units you have. Maybe that subtract 1 from Rend to help keep your units alive longer. So I like these battle traits. They do offer some good tactical flexibility, and it's going to be very interesting to see how they work with the rest of the army. What I would love to see is a way for us to maybe like a heroic command trait or something like that, where an enhancement. Sorry, I couldn't think of the name. An enhancement where maybe we get to pick an extra one or something like that, or something that plays along with these battle tricks. It'll be interesting to see if there's anything that allows us to take an extra asterism or like re-roll an asterism or something, or select a different one, something like that in all of our enhancements. So unfortunately, we don't know what the enhancements are yet, so we'll have to wait and see those. One of the things that they did show us is a battle formation. Think of these as kind of like your sub-factions. So battle formations, there's many ways to enact the Great Plan in war. And Seraphon come with 4 battle formations to represent them. The Sunclaw Star Host carries Celestite weapons supercharged with energy that rarefies the vengeance of Azir. Sounds really cool. It's not quite that cool. You can see it here, Sunclaw, which I was glad to see like Sunclaw return, because that's the old... Was that the old Saurus Guard battalion from a few books ago? I don't think I ever played the Sunclaw battalion. It was something like Saurus Guard, I believe. But it's cool to see that return. Here's what it does. Once per turn for the army, end of any turn, you pick up to 3 friendly Saurus or Kroxigor units that are in combat to be targets. For each target, you make a pile-in move, then pick an enemy unit in combat with a target and roll a d3. On a 2-up, inflict the amount of mortal damage on that enemy unit equal to the roll. It kind of seems like this kind of ability is replacing their bites, because we haven't seen the bites on any of these units yet. And so, if so, that's kind of unfortunate, because it's really not that strong as far as the mortal damage is concerned. I think the best thing about this ability is really to make a pile-in move. That right there just gives you, an extra 3 inches of movement. You can do some fun stuff as far as like capturing objectives, pulling things into combat. If you had like Agrodons, assuming their rage is the same, if you can pull something else into combat at the end of the turn, that way they keep their rage going. I don't even know if that'll still work the same in the new edition, but I think that pile-in move is probably the best thing about this battle formation. Now, do I think this is the strongest one? I sure hope not. It does show that there are going to be some other formations here. So other formations capitalize on the indomitable Seraphon war beasts. So think about like Thunder Lizard type of thing, Thunderquake. That's the one I'm probably most excited about as a Thunder Lizard fan. I can't wait to see what that battle formation is. Another one says tap into celestial energies to teleport key units around the battlefield. We're seeing that Starborn trait in the teleports. So it is kind of unfortunate that it looks like that's going to be locked to a battle formation, the teleports. But maybe it'll go back to a couple battle tomes ago where we could do like 2 units. That would really be a lot more powerful than just one. We'll see. Another one says, exploit the natural swiftness of nimble skink hosts. Probably pretty similar to what we're seeing now. So that's why I was a little disappointed in the Sunclaw one, because it looks like we have a Thunder Lizard, a Fangs of Sotek, and a Dracothian's Tail basically brought forward. And if this is the Saurus faced one, the Codal's Claw buff, seems a little weak. The mortal damage is not going to be that significant, and your pile-in moves will be the best part of this. So, not the most exciting battle formation. I do think there is some play for it, some usefulness for it, for those pile-in moves, but if any of the other battle formations are any good, I think this one may get left behind. We'll see. We'll see. Next up, they showed us one of these spells. They did say we have 2 spell lores that we'll have access to, so that's cool. So it does look like there's going to be kind of the same split between like the skink and the Saurus focused ones, kind of like we had previously. I don't know exactly how it's going to be broken up, but it does, in that next paragraph, it does kind of talk about how there's 2 different focuses on that. The one spell they gave us was for the Lore of Celestial Manipulation, Mystical Unforging. Has a casting value of 6, and you pick a friendly Seraphon wizard to cast a spell. Pick an invisible enemy unit within 12 of them to be the target. Then make a casting roll of 2d6. The effect: subtract 1 from the Ren characteristics of the target's weapons until the start of your next turn. Note that this is an unlimited spell, so depending on how many wizards you have, you might be able to cast this out multiple times, which would be pretty cool. So another way to basically debuff the enemy. If we look back at our battle tactics and we look at this, Quetzal the Preserver, where we're getting -1 to the rend, and if we're able to then apply another -1 rend, all of a sudden, our units can be fairly tanky if we're just ignoring 2 rend from a specific target. The biggest problem with this is that it does have a very short range of 12 inches. So without knowing exactly how well we can buff our spell ranges, which is kind of critical in Starborn right now, we won't really know how good any of these spells are. So as soon as we see like the Astrolith Banner Bearer and any of the other stuff that we have access to, we can really tell if this is going to be a really good spell or not a great spell. Because if we don't have any way to buff our ranges, 12 inches is just so short. This will be almost like something's charged you, and now you cast this on them on the next turn. So, I don't know. It's all going to come down to the Astrolith, I think. But a very interesting spell, and I think it does go well with that Quetzal the Preserver battle trait, Asterism. It does talk to other sorceries down here that invoke the wrath of the heavens through showers of comets. So, Comet's Call. Call on the speed and grace of Huanche. So, Speed of Huanche. It looks like that one's going to be back. The Lore of Primal Jungles. So, this is you think of your coalesced spells here. I'm hoping that's not locked down as specifically as it has been in the past. I think hopefully you'll just be able to pick one of these, which I think is how it's going to work. But it talks about healing spells, violent earthquake spells, which was a terrible one this past edition, and then Empower Celestite. So I'd like to see Empower Celestite, see what that does now, see if it'll increase the rend again, or if it's going to be like, some kind of critical bonus or something like that. So I am kind of interested to see what those spells are, because really, our spells will end up buffing your units. So as we look at these next Warscrolls, be thinking there's still things that we don't know yet. All our enhancement, the rest of our spell lore, we still need to see those, the other sub-factions or battle formations, to really get an idea of how good these Warscrolls are. So, on the topic of Warscrolls, they did show us a couple Warscrolls here, and I'm pretty excited about a few of these. So, the first one I like is the Saurus Oldblood on Carnosaur. Now, It's not like a powerhouse of a model, but I think what it does is it does have an interesting play here. So, 10-inch move, 14 health. We lost 1 health for some reason. 4 up save, control of 5. All pretty standard what we'd pretty much expect. The Sunbolt Gauntlet still does the same thing. It does allow us to shoot in combat for whatever that's worth. This thing rarely ever does damage. But if you need to, it can shoot in combat. Where the melee weapons get interesting. So this is a much better Warscroll than what we saw on the Spearhead. So we've only seen the Spearhead Warscroll for Carnosaur up to this point. This one is much better. Much better. So Sunstone Spear, 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1 rend, 2 damage. Same as what we have now, but we get a +1 damage on the charge. Yes! Finally, spears do what spears are supposed to do and get extra damage on the charge. So that's nice. So you've got 5 attacks doing 3 damage on the charge. That tells me this Oldblood wants to be charging, and I'm okay with that. So that sounds like a fun. I like that one a lot on there, especially when we look at this other stuff. So forelimbs, the claws for the Carnosaur, it is a companion weapon. So remember, any of these companion weapons, we can get that passive ability where they crit on 6s to do an extra hit. 4 attacks now, which is much better than it used to be. We had 2 attacks before. 4s and 2s, which is what was it before? 3s and 3s. So I mean, it's essentially the same. -1 rend, 3 damage. So that's nice. More damage, ability to crit, more attacks on the claws, and then the Carnosaur's massive jaws. 3 attacks, 4s, 2s, 2 rend, 3 damage. Went down in damage here for the jaws, but I think we make up for it in the other attacks and the extra damage there. So overall, I think it massed out a little bit more damage than what you would normally get from the Carnosaur right now. So that's kind of cool. I'll show you the damage numbers here in a second. So battle damage, the passive for battle damage, which you see this on a lot of monsters, for the Carnosaur is great. On the Spearhead, he really takes a big hit. It goes from like 3 damage down to 1. Here, if the Carnosaur's taken 10 or more damage points, the attack characteristics of the massive jaws is 2. You only lose 1 jaw attack for being bracketed. That's it. I'm perfectly fine with that, especially because like you're going to have more damage coming from the other stuff than the jaws, which is weird. The jaws are, I mean, they're higher rend, but everything is going to be 3 damage if you've charged. So losing 1 attack that does 3 damage is not as big of a deal once you have all the other attacks. So I'm okay with that. I like that. I feel like we escaped any kind of hard bracket on this Carnosaur. Another passive, Spearhead of the Charge. If this unit charges turn, add 1 to charge rolls for friendly Saurus units while they're wholly within 18 of this unit for the rest of the turn. I mean, it's going to be good if you're charging it and you still have a unit within range. It's kind of a weird. I wish this would like be a passive, just +1 to charge for Saurus within range of it. Instead of you have to make a charge with this unit first and then everything wholly within 18. Because what happens if you charge out of, like, you have some Agrodons with you and you charge and now the Agrodons aren't in range. So you've got to keep that in mind with your movement and where you're planning on going with your charge if you want that +1 to charge. It's not that big of a bonus that if you get out of range, you'll probably be okay. But it is worth keeping in mind for movement and where you end up. Not a huge passive, but a decent one. The other passive here is Terror. Subtract 2 from control scores of enemy units while they're in combat with this unit. I mean, whatever. Like if you're attacking a unit of, 10 random, guys, if they have a banner, they're going to count as 11? You're going to subtract 2, they're going to count as 9. Whatever. I mean, that's not that great. I think where it really comes into play is if you're attacking a monster with this Carnosaur. So instead of counting as 5, that monster, they would only count as 3. You would grab the objective. So that actually plays well into Blood Frenzy, the next ability. Once per turn, army, any combat phase. If this unit's in combat with any damaged enemy monsters, roll a dice. On a 3-up, this unit has strike first for the rest of the turn. So, do some plink damage to a monster, charge this Carnosaur in, And now you're going to be doing extra damage. You've got -2 to its control, and you're going to have strike first for the rest of this turn for this Carnosaur. So a very good unit that I think can go monster hunting, basically. He does enough damage that you'll be able to take on some monsters, I think. Especially with strike first, you don't have to worry about surviving the first hit. So maybe what you do is you charge in the Carnosaur and some Agrodons, depending on what their Warscroll looks like. Agrodons will get the buff for the +1 to charge. Now you get to strike first with the Carnosaur against a monster, and then your Agrodons can immediately activate after that. So I think it has some play here. Let's look at the damage here, and then talk a little bit more. So the average damage here, you see it has gone up a little bit. It's not like hugely significant, but it did go up a little bit. So the old Carnosaur is listed there on the left versus a 4-up save. You're doing like 9 damage. The new one's doing almost 14. So a decent increase in damage potential. And I think that comes from just having a lot more of attacks that are doing 3 damage each on the charge, of course. And this is with the companion exploding damage. So that helps out there too. So once you get the companion attacks, I think it does help out there. If you're not planning on that, then the Carnosaur doesn't quite do as much damage, but it is very helpful. So those are the numbers for companion, exploding crits, and the +1 damage on the charge. So if you do apply all-out attack, because you're already getting those extra explosions, all-out attack really helps out with this because you'll be hitting on 3s and 2s for a lot of it. So does decent damage there, 17. Still not the most damaging thing that we've seen so far for Seraphon, but I think for a melee monster, depending on the points, of course, it does pretty well. It kind of has a role of hunting down other monsters. Now, this thing will still get absolutely obliterated by like Yndrasta, but I think for what it is, the Carnosaur works pretty well. Now, it doesn't have some of the best abilities that it currently has in the old edition, which is like the double command points. Well, I guess that was the only thing. Vengeful Defender, we'll see if that survives. But the double command points is gone, so it's not as much of a support piece as it used to be. Like right now, I play my Carnosaur as a support piece, so I don't think we'll be doing that with this new one. Much more of a missile shooting out to go try to kill another monster. Which, you know what? I like that. I like that on the Carnosaur. So the Carnosaur is a good Warscroll, I think. I think we got an improvement here as far as damage goes. And, having, 12 attacks that can do 3 damage? That's not bad. That's not bad. So I like that one. What's next up? Okay, next up is the Slann. And the Slann didn't change a whole lot. 5 move, 9 health, 5 up save. Yeah. 2 control. Melee weapons doesn't even matter. You don't ever get your Slann in combat. So Masters of Order is his passive, and this is kind of similar to what we've seen before. Oh, first off, we should probably look down here because a lot of the stuff is down here in these keywords. Wizard, power level 3, and then does have a native ward of 6 up, so that's nice. So now we don't have to cast a spell to give ourselves a ward, or get next to terrain, or get next to the astrolith, all the goofy stuff we used to have to do. Now he just gets an innate ward of 6, so that's nice. So let's look at its passives. For Masters of Order, we have add 1 to casting, and essentially the same thing we had before, board-wide unbinds. The very good ability, that's kind of what makes the Slann tick, is that it's a very good defensive piece, especially against other magic armies. So you can unbind from wherever you're at. Another ability here, in our hero phase, we have this spell cast here, and it's Celestial Equilibrium, same as before, casting value 6. You add 1 to casting rolls made for other friendly Seraphon wizards while they're wholly within 12. So same kind of thing we've seen before. It looks like the Slann may still be part of a casting castle. So it'll kind of depend on what everything else looks like too, how good this is. But you'd pretty much only cast this if you've got a bunch of other wizards in your army. So we'll see. Once per turn, any hero phase, you've got Arcane Vassal, same kind of thing before. A Skink Wizard, wholly within 18, you can cast your next spell through that unit. So very similar to what we have now. Here's the newest thing, and we've been seeing this a lot on armies here, is this Celestial Reinforcements. It's called different things in different armies, but you pick a friendly Seraphon unit that started the battle with 3 or more models and that has been destroyed by the target. Roll a dice on a 4-up, set up a replacement unit with half the number of models from the target unit, rounding up, wholly within 12 of this unit, and more than 9 from all enemy units. It's a very powerful ability, but it's not really unique to Seraphon. We've seen a lot of these previews show some ability for every army to have some type of recursion like this. Instead of summoning, they've said this is what we're going to be doing. So I would not expect to see any type of summoning on any of the other Seraphon stuff. It looks like this is going to be how we bring stuff back. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays because so much of our spellcasting castles relied on summoning what we needed. So I think we're going to have to spend more points on those units that we need in our army at the beginning of the game. But we do have a way to bring them back. This would be very strong for things on the like Saurus side, Agrodons, the Kroxigor would be amazing for this. Saurus warriors, if you have a block of 20 warriors and bring back 10, that's a good recursion here. So if you are taking a Slann, I think this is going to be one of the reasons why you would be taking them is to cycle those units back. So very good ability, but pretty standard with a lot of what we've seen. So far, nothing just like crazy good about the Slann. I think he'll make it into a lot of lists, depending on how many points, etc. But being able to bring in the reinforcements, even on the Coalesce side of things, the Saurus side of things, will be key. So overall, a good Warscroll, but it's all going to depend on what the spell lore looks like, to be honest. And we don't know what the rest of the spell lore looks like. All right, Engine of the Gods. Ooh, here we go. So I'm glad they previewed this. It's not as good as I would have hoped for, but at least it's playable now, okay? So the Engine of the God has 14 health, 8-inch move, 4-up save, 5 control. Pretty standard here for what it currently has. Some javelins from the skinks. A little bit better. These skinks have been slowly getting better. Oh, but they lost rend. They had -1 rend previously. 6 attacks, 4s and 4s, no rend. Just don't even worry about this. You'll roll it, but it'll almost never do any damage. The melee weapons, Stegodon horns and jaws, these are companion. You have 6 attacks, 4s, 2s, -1, 2 damage, but you do get +1 damage on the charge, which we'll look at this here in a second. I think this kind of plays against what you want the Engine of the Gods to do, but I'm guessing this is kind of what the Stegodon's melee profile is going to look like too, because the Engine of the Gods and Stegodons have always had the same melee profile. If so, I mean, it kind of seems disappointing because it's not as many attacks and you don't have the chance to spike those big 4 damage horn attacks, but it's probably a little bit more consistent if you're charging. You can see the damage down there at the bottom right. It actually works out to about the same as what the Stegodons are right now if you charge, because you do get that +1 damage. Because then you've got 6 attacks doing 3 damage. So we're seeing a lot of these monsters in Seraphon have quite a bit of damage, especially on the charge. So that's kind of exciting. But in the end, you still only have 6 attacks. So you're going to miss half of them on the first to hit. You might get 1 back from if you've got the asterism up for exploding hits. But -1 rend. So I don't know. It's okay. But it almost seems like you don't even want this thing in combat. Look down. Passive battle damage. When it's taken 10, you lose 2 attacks on the horns and jaws. That's unfortunate, but there are ways to heal this guy up. So you shouldn't stay at 10 or more damage for very long. Once per turn army, any combat phase. And here's where I don't really like this ability. Crest of Horns. Pick an enemy unit that charged this turn and is in combat with this unit to be the target. Roll a d3. On a 2-up, inflict the amount of mortal damage on the target equal to the roll. Add 1 to save rolls for attacks made by that enemy unit that target this unit for the rest of the turn. So, and that is keyworded rampage for what that's worth. So that's unfortunate. This is like the old Crest of Horns you would just get automatically versus a 5 or less model unit. But you could do it on your turn too when you charge. So now if you charge, you don't get any of this. So Pick an enemy unit that has charged this turn. It's like, yeah, it's only when they charge you. And we also no longer get our impact mortals. Now it's like a reverse impact mortals. If they charge you, they might take D3 mortal wounds. So very strange ability here. Because it makes it seem like you don't want to charge this unit, and yet you get a charge ability on its damage if you charge. So it would have made a lot more sense if this was you charging. So it's gonna be interesting to see if this carries over to the normal Stegodons too. If so, that's gonna be a little disappointing because they don't do enough damage to like clear something. So you need that extra mortal wound and saves to keep them alive. But I don't know. So that's kind of a weird, where you want to charge it but you don't want to. But here, let's look at the engine of the gods, the cosmic engine. It's had its ups and downs. It's not been very good the last edition. I've tried to play it once or twice and it just was not good. This one's better. So that's at least good. At least it's playable. So declare, this is in your hero phase. Declare, this unit will harness the power, will harness or reserve the power of its cosmic engine. So same as before, you can either use it or not. Already that kind of feels bad, but let's keep going. If you will reserve the power, place a cosmic power token next to this unit. So yeah, same as before, you're going to level it up. If you'll harness the power, roll a dice, and add the number of cosmic power tokens this unit has to the roll, then remove all the cosmic power tokens this unit has and pick one of the following effects if possible. So here's where it does get better. When you do roll it, at least none of these options say you're going to take damage, which is good. None of the options have something bad that happens, and you don't have to pick the effect before you roll. So all together, that is already much better than the old Engine of the Gods. So let's look at the abilities. Healing Light on a 3-up, you can heal D3 all friendly Seraphon units wholly within 12 of this unit. This one's kind of good. If you're taking a monster list, maybe shove this Engine of the Gods right in between all your monsters, and that way you can keep healing up your monsters every turn. This would probably be the one that you would go for if you just want to roll the Cosmic Engine. You're probably going to get this most often if you're not saving up any Cosmic Power tokens. So heals are always good, especially on monsters and stuff. Also good for like Agrodons or Kroxigor, that kind of thing. Some Starlight Summons. On a 5-up, you can pick up to 3 friendly Seraphon units wholly within 12 of this unit. Return 1 slain model to each unit. Now, this one sounds really good. It's on a 5-up. You roll that a third of the time if you're just rolling it raw, or if you use some Cosmic Power tokens, you can get better. But wholly within 12 is very restrictive because it's going to be, to be honest, it's going to be hard to get 3 Seraphon units wholly within 12 of this unit that you would want to return slain models to. So this almost seems like, you're going to shove this right up next to your like Saurus warriors, keep them wholly within 12. You're going to try to summon one back, but you're only going to return like 1 model per turn. It seems weird because wholly within 12 is so restrictive for this. It seems like it's going to be hard to have up to 3 units wholly within 12 that need to summon 1 model back. So it sounds great on the surface. I think if the range was bigger, like just even 18, then this would be a whole lot more useful. And especially since it's on a 5-up, you might get everything lined up and you don't get it. So it's not bad. It's good if you get it. You get to return a slain model, but it's not just like overwhelmingly powerful or anything. If you do roll a 6 or higher, time slows. This one is good if you can get this on when you plan it. Which you can't. On a 6-up, you can pick up to 3 friendly Seraphon units wholly within 12 of this unit. These units have strike first for the rest of the turn. This would work good for like an alpha strike army if you just feel lucky and you think you can roll a 6. This would be good for like a monster match list. That's why I think the Engine of the Gods on the surface looks like it will be good into a monster list. You're taking this, moving it up with like your other Stegodons or Carnosaurs or Bastiladons or something. Maybe you're healing your Bastiladons as needed. If you roll a 6, now your Stegodons that are right here near it will get fight first, and you just charge everything in. So I think there is some use here, but it's so random that it's going to be hard to do. And a lot of times you're not going to want to save up a couple save up 2 cosmic power points, then you roll a 1. and now all you've done is healed D3, and it's taken you 3 turns to do that. So it's not great. It may all come down to points. If this thing's cheap, then you could take a couple of them just to support your army. A couple of them all banded together, they're going to heal themselves constantly. If you don't kill one, they could heal everything back up. Maybe that's the play, but they just don't have enough damage. That if you took 4 of these, just being goofy here, or even more than that, I guess you can take as many as you want to now. Auxiliary units. Let's just take a whole army of these. Hey, hold on. Did I just talk myself into this? If you take a whole army of these, it would be very hard to kill. You'll heal up a lot. Maybe you'll get the strike first. The 5-up would be useless, but maybe there's a place for it. It's all going to depend on points. If it's cheap enough, I could see throwing this into your list as a unit that's a nice to have, but I don't think it's going to be critical to our stuff. We'll see. At least it's playable now, where the previous one was just not even playable. Speaking of not playable, we got the Terradon Riders. This one was an odd one to preview. I guess maybe they can't make every Warscroll amazing. Maybe this will still be like 100 points for 3 of these, and it just plays that role of a skirmisher. But Terradon Riders, they are extremely fast. They have 14-inch move, 3 health, 5-up save. Hey, wait, they had a 6-up save previously, so that's nice. They got +1 to save. Javelins and bolas are pretty bad. You get 3 attacks each. They do auto wound on a crit, but no rend, 1 damage. The damage is almost negligible. You're not going to do anything there. Their jaws, it is a companion, so you could crit on 6s to do extra attacks. You have 3 attacks each, 4s, 3s, -1/1. Not great. So you're talking 9 attacks. I guess you do have a champion. I don't think I calculated the champion in that. Not that would be much more, but just on their Warscroll, they're not doing a lot of damage. You see the damage table over there on the right. It's pretty pathetic for 3 of them. And so unless we see some buffs that will really affect these Terradon Riders, they're probably not going to have too much of a critical role. If there are a bunch of buffs or something that goes into this, then maybe we can have a resurgence or of something with these Terradon Riders. But I'm not too excited about them. Their deadly cargo got nerfed too. You pick an enemy unit that this unit has passed across in your movement phase, and roll a dice for each model in this unit. So base 3, max of 6. And you'd add 2 to each roll if this unit is within combat ranges of any friendly Terradon Chief units. For each 5-up, you just inflict 1 mortal damage on the target. And if any of it does damage and the unit does not fly, they can't use run abilities until the start of your next turn. That's pretty good right there if you could do that, but the damage just isn't going to be there. So with 3 of them, you've also now got to take the Terradon Chief, which you would kind of had to do before. But you're going to roll 3 dice, and on a 3-up, if you line it up with the Chief, so you've got to move across, and then you've got to get your Chief within the combat range, within 3 inches of this unit as well. So some very weird stuff going on. So if you do that, then on a 3-up, you do immortal damage. So you're going to average 2 damage? When a unit of 6, maybe you get 4 if you're lucky. Just not very much damage whatsoever. They do have a passive, which is subtract 1 from hit rolls for shooting attacks. So I think that's kind of where it plays into just like your very light skirmisher, run the board edges, score those battle tactics. I hope they're cheap because they're just not doing much damage. We'll wait and see what the entire index looks like. Maybe there's something that buffs these sky high, but so far it doesn't really look like it. So pretty bad damage numbers there. I did want to go back and hit on the Kroxigor since we're looking at some of these. Maybe you haven't seen the Kroxigor Warscroll, which came out a while ago. This by far is still our best Warscroll we have. This one is amazing. The Kroxigor. This is definitely a good Warscroll from what we've seen. So far, I think Kroxigor and like Gorgers may have the most potential damage that we've seen so far. I think I haven't mathed out everybody's units, but this one is up there as a high damage unit. So, especially if you get them into the right target. If you get them in the right target, they're just going to absolutely slap. So they are slow, 5-inch move. They have 6 health now, 4 up save, 2 control each. You'll have 2 models in the unit that have the Maul, which have 4 attacks, 4s, 2s, -1, 2 damage. But you add 1 to the damage from the passive Brutal Blows if you're attacking a unit that has 10 or more models. And if it's infantry, you get +1 rend. So now, you know, those 2 models are going to have 8 total attacks on 2 rend, 3 damage. And then you add the Moonhammer in there for another 4 attacks for 2 rend and 4 damage. These things will absolutely destroy hordes. So that is awesome to see, because I think 1 unit of Kroxigor, like right now, I don't know what the points cost are going to be, obviously, but like right now, you've got to put a unit of Kroxigor, probably a unit of 6 into your list to deal with any of these hordes that are going to be out there. I mean, if they go into a unit of 10 models that are infantry, they're going to like wipe the unit out. You can see the damage. The average damage table there, you got 3 Kroxigor versus 10 infantry is doing 15 damage. If you do all-out attack onto that, they're a very good unit for all-out attack, because then their mauls are hitting on 3s and 2s, and the Moonhammer's hitting on 2s and 2s. So very accurate attacks there. Be doing 20 damage, and obviously that scales up to 6, where you'll be doing over 40 damage versus a 4-up save on average versus an infantry unit like that. So very high damage output for Kroxigor. I'm looking to run some Kroxigor in this next edition. Hopefully the points will make it viable. And their biggest downfall is the movement. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, if there's a battle formation with the teleports, what kind of teleports we can get with these Kroxigor. Because if you can deliver them where you need to, that will be awesome. That will be very damaging. So I really like Kroxigor. You can obviously tell, like, you're talking 40 damage versus these other things we've looked at. Saurus Sunblood comes the closest, but you probably wouldn't want to use your all-out attack if you didn't need to. On the Carnosaur, obviously the Engine of the Gods and the Terradons are pathetic compared to that. So Kroxigor will definitely still our best hard-hitting unit. So I'm interested to see what the other battle formations and buffs so we can apply to these Kroxigor to make them even better. Kroxigor would benefit good from these passives too. So they won't get the companion one. So they won't ever benefit from the first one, Itzel the Tamer, but the next 2 would be very good for them. So Quetzal the Preserver, subtract 1 from Rend. Because they're so slow, they're going to be in your territory for a while. Kroxigor will. And so as you move them up, this will help keep them alive a little bit longer. Also, Sotek the Deliverer, +2 to the move, is very good for them also. Makes them faster, gets them where they need to go. So casting, who knows if maybe there'll be some buffs we can do on spell casting, but Kroxigor are looking pretty good. There are some other things that I think have been leaked so far. Who knows what else is going to get leaked soon. Hopefully we start seeing all the indexes soon. Some things I wanted to highlight, like the list building is going to be based on, your hero's battle profile. Lists which units can be added to their regiment. And each non-hero unit's battle profile lists any relevant keyword it has. So battle profiles of some heroes, such as named characters, may say that they can be added to the regiment of another hero. So this is going to be interesting to see what unit slot where. So I would imagine, the Saurus heroes will take Saurus units. Something like the Scar Veteran on Agradon will have Agradons in its battle regiment. But where will Kroxigor go? Hopefully Kroxigor aren't going to be like an auxiliary unit, like you can't take them anywhere else. Surely not. But it'll be interesting to see where they slot in. This will affect how we, build our armies. Pretty big time, it seems like. Because, no longer could you take now this is all speculation. I'm imagining you can't take, like a skink star priest with a bunch of Saurus now. So this probably, you're going to have to massage your lists a little bit as far as your regiments go to make sure you get in the buffs that you want. We'll see when all of that drops. Enhancements, I'm glad to see some of these enhancements listed. So it says each set of faction rules include a number of enhancements that can be given to units For example, heroic traits, mount traits, and artifacts of power. You can take one enhancement from each enhancement table in your faction rules. So we haven't seen that yet, but that'll be a big part of it. So I'm glad to see mount traits are back. So mount traits are listed. That's good. Heroic traits are listed, and artifacts of power. So that means some of these things will get a little bit better. The Carnosaur could be a little bit better. The Slann could be a little bit better, depending on what enhancements we can give it. So give them to us. Auxiliary units, it talks about some of that. I think we've seen the auxiliary unit stuff before. Regiments of Renown, it looks like probably Allies is going away, it seems, and Regiments of Renown will be the thing that might replace it there. But this one right here is pretty big. Underspending. This harkens back to like 2 editions ago, I think, where if you were, you could basically spend 50 points to get an extra command point. That's kind of what this is. If the point cost of your army is 50 or more points lower than the points limit of the battle, you gain 1 extra command point at the start of the first battle round. That seems as valuable as command points are. That seems quite good. So, is 1950 going to be the new standard for army building? Like if you're sitting at 1960, 1970. Can you massage that extra 10 or 20 points to make sure you get that extra command point? It seems like it might be useful. Then, gosh, these things will just compound if you've beaten the other person on the auxiliary drops and you get another command point that way. So, underspending sounds like something that might be pretty good. We'll see. Ooh. Somebody posted this season rules, which I think were pretty interesting. You got Honor Guard. I think we've heard a little bit about this before. So your army can use one of the following abilities. And I think this was maybe the new part, or at least it was new to me. Once per battle in your deployment phase, basically you can declare somebody to be your Honor Guard, and instead of taking one of these other abilities, you can apply one of these to their weapons. So it says anytime that your Honor Guard is charged, the unit's melee weapons have the weapon ability you picked. It has no effect on companion weapons. So look at this. Anti-infantry +1 rend, anti-cavalry +1 rend, anti-monster +1 rend. It's all +1 rend, but war machine and beast. So think like you've got some like Kroxigor or something, or Saurus Guard, or Saurus Warriors. I don't know what Saurus Guard are going to look like, but let's say you have Saurus Warriors or Kroxigor, something that would go well into this, that you don't mind getting charged. You apply this to them instead of one of the other Honor Guard rules, and now let's say you're facing a monster mash list, you just give them +1 against anti-monsters. So now if they charge that unit of, let's say, 20 warriors, now they've got +1 rend in addition. This can be pretty spicy, so I think this is going to be an interesting pick here. It does have the downfall of you don't get these other abilities from Honor Guard, but I think if you're not too worried about your general, or you're not kind of playing into these Honor Guard rules, this is an excellent way to pivot a little bit and give another unit an ability. Note, it does say you can pick a unit that's in. Well, I just crossed it out. You can pick a unit that is in reserve, so that's really nice. So if you wanted to put something in reserve, if we have a way to do that. Let's say you drop something in front of their monster that's anti-monster. Okay, charge me. So a nice little ability to troll your opponent there. The other stuff you can do with these Honor Guard, you have +1 to hit and wound rolls made by the Honor Guard that target any units in the enemy general's regiment. That's good. A good ability too, especially as we're probably going to have a lot of things in the enemy's general regiment. Now, I haven't seen a lot of stuff that I'd want to use +1 to hit and wound rolls for, like a Kroxigor or a hardest anything, and they're already wounded on 2s. A lot of the monsters that we've seen so far are hitting on 2s. So I don't think I would be looking to use that one for Seraphon as much yet. We don't know what else is going to pop up, but I don't like that one quite as much because I've got access to +1 to hit other ways. So maybe I don't need that one yet. But it might work good for like Saurus Warriors or something. We'll have to see. The other ability you can use is this one here, which is like really just guarding your general. You subtract 1 from attacks characteristics of enemy units' melee weapons while they're in combat with your general if your honor guard is wholly within 6 of your general and your honor guard did not charge his turn. So maybe if you're protecting your Slann or Kroak, let's say you're marching Kroak up the board with some Saurus guard, this would be a good one to access, because if they charge into you, they're going to do a lot less damage, depending on what they look like and stuff. So interesting stuff there. Universal battle tactics. I think we've seen most of these, but just in case you haven't, here's a screenshot for you that's been passed around. So some good battle tactics that we'll get into, I'm sure, by the time all this stuff comes out, and how we play our lists. So, all right, guys, that's it for today. Some exciting stuff with our battle traits. Let me know if I missed anything or if you see some combos that I haven't found yet. And I'm excited for the rest of the battle tome to come out. If you've got it, leak it. All right, we'll see you guys later.